Hello, in this video we are going to play around with Ollama. Ollama is a LLM provider slash client that allows you to work with actual language models. It is available for Mac, Linux, and now with Windows it's in preview as far as a beta. And this is the website here. I'll end up putting in the description. It's just ollama.com. But yeah, you would just go to download and you'll be able to download it for your operating system. I've played around with Windows. I've personally just had issues on my machine. So I'm going to be using Windows Subsystem for Linux in that case. So the first thing that I have to do is actually get WSL set up and installed. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've opened up a Windows terminal. And I'm just going to use the built-in command of WSL -- install. And by default, it's going to download the Ubuntu image, and it's going to install that for us. So we'll just let it take its time, and once it's ready, we'll be able to log in and start setting up Ollama. All right, so now we're ready to begin entering a user. So I'm just going to just type in Ubuntu to make things easy, put in a password, and confirm that password. All right, so now we are set up over here. And I'm going to go ahead and clear out my screen. And what we want to do now is install Ollama. So I'm going to go back to the website. I'm going to click on Linux, and it's going to give me a curl command. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to come back over here. Just paste it in, hit enter. All right. And since this is a higher level permission that needs to be done to add the Ollama shell script to the bin directory, I need to enter my password, which I'll provide. All right. And one of the benefits, since I'm running on WSL from my actual Windows host, it is able to detect my NVIDIA GPU, which is great. So I should be able to do a sudo systemctl status Ollama, because it does set it up as a service by default. So we do see that it's running. So now, and I'm going to clear my screen again. The first step that you want to do is actually install a model to work with. So that's how you'll be able to query against underlying machine model or machine learning model, large language model. So I'll do Ollama list, and notice I don't have anything. So the command that you'll want to get something on your system is to do Ollama run, and then the name of the model. You can get the name of the models by going back to Ollama. Go over here to models, and this is where it's going to have information on the different models, and it really is just the name. So Gemma, that's the one that recently was released by Google. We have Llama 2, Mistral, so on and so forth. And if you click on that, it's going to tell you more things about the model, how you can interact with it, in this case from an API perspective, as well as how many parameters it takes and how much RAM you're going to need, depending on the model. So you can see the 7 billion parameter model, in this case, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and then it does gradually increase depending on how many parameters there is in the model. That just means parameters, just how much data that model was trained on. All right, so I'm going to do Ollama. You can do either Ollama run or Ollama pull. I'll just go ahead and do Ollama pull, Llama 2, and it might help if I spell it correctly. Ollama tool. And so it's going to go ahead and pull this down. Think of this very similar to containers and Docker. If you're familiar with pulling down Docker images and applications, this is very much the same logic, even though behind the scenes it might work slightly differently. And we can see it's going to be 3.8 gigabytes. So this is just going to take a moment to pull down to my system, and then I'll be able to play around with this model. Thankfully, I have a good enough internet connection where it doesn't take too long. All right, our model has now been pulled down. Now I can go ahead and start interacting with it from the command line, which is going to be the easiest way to start playing around with it locally. And again, this is entirely a local model, by the way, so nothing's going up to an OpenAI. This is all within. And the benefit of local models and more advanced topic is being able to query your own data, your own documents, things that you don't want to be pushed out to these closed systems. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out my screen again. I'm going to type Ollama run Llama 2. That's going to be the name of my model. And now we are actually provided with a command interface with the input prompt that will allow us to enter data. To see the commands, do a /?. This allows you to see some of the things that you can set, such as variables. You can also save sessions as well. So if you're doing a chat session, you can save it, then load it later. But let's go ahead and just say, what is the tallest building in the world? And it's going to give you some information back out. This is the underlying AI prompt or response. And again, this isn't going out. This is entirely in your network. In fact, I can go ahead down here and I can turn off my my internet connection. So I'm no longer connected. So I can come out here and try to go to google.com. I'm not connected to the internet. But with my model, I'm gonna go ahead and exit it, come back in. I'll say Ollama run Llama 2. All right. When was Colorado founded and by whom? Excuse me. So you can see that I'm not connected to the actual internet, and I'm actually able to interact with the model in that case. I can go ahead and save this. So I can do, let's do that /?, and then we'll save this as Colorado. And then let's go ahead and, do you do /by to exit? And again, I'll do Ollama run 2. And notice there's nothing here. And it might say, what was my last question? All right, nothing previously. So then I might say load Colorado. And there we go. That was my last question. There we go. So that's a way to save your chat messages, in this case, using Ollama from the command line. And I'm going to go ahead and do by, and then we'll do Ollama list. This will show the models that I have. And notice Colorado, what I saved, this is now kind of saved as its own model, but it's based off the Llama 2 that I had, and it has that chat history. And notice the size is also 3.8 gigabytes. So be careful when it comes to saving those models, mostly when it comes to your disk space that you may have. Yeah, so then I can just go ahead and download another model as well. So I could do a run command at the same time. So I could say Ollama run, let's say code llama. This is going to be another model. This one is more specific for coding tasks. And through the power of video editing, I will speed this one up. Let me make sure I spelled that correctly. So I'm going to go back to, oh, haha, I'm not on the internet. That's why. So let's go ahead and reconnect back. There we go. Confirm. All right, there we go. All right, and this is also going to be 3.8. So we're going to go ahead and just let this one download, and I'll speed this up through the power of video editing. And there we go. So not only has the model been pulled down, but I've been dropped directly into my prompt where I can immediately start asking questions. Show me a Python function, Python code that can scrape a website for all images, all image links. And here we go. If you're familiar with Python, this should make sense to you using that beautiful soup library and being able to scrape a web page, in this case, example.com, and provide a list of all the images and prints it back out. So, all right, cool. So we'll go ahead and do by, and I'll do Ollama list once again. And notice I have the Llama 2, the Colorado, which was my saved conversation, and then code llama in that case. I'll do Ollama /? Oh. I'll do -s help. You can do on that. The question mark was when I was in the prompt part of it. This one is I'm using the help documentation directly by calling Ollama -help, which was going to provide a similar list of commands in this case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that Colorado model that I have. So I'll do Ollama RM Colorado. So it might help if I spell that correctly. There we go. And then Ollama list once again. So I can just reclaim that disk space in that case. All right. So now we have Ollama running. And I can do a curl. Sorry, my nose is itching. I can do a curl. Now that we have Ollama up and running, and we know that we can interact with models and have two models in this case, I can do a curl to make sure it's running. I'll do a curl localhost. By default, Ollama runs on port 11434, and we can see Ollama is running. Now, what I want to do, or the next steps, is I want to begin like coding with Ollama, and I want to be able to access this on my actual host machine. Even though I have WSL running underneath this, there's that networking layer in that case. So if I come to my Windows machine, I would expect, if I come up here and I already have it in my browser, notice I can't get to localhost 11434 in that case. So what I have to do is two things. Well, one, let me I need to get the IP address of this WSL instance, because WSL is on a different network on my host machine. So I have to do an ifconfig. Here we go. So I'm going to try this address from my local machine. So notice that's not working. So the question you might ask is, hey, can you ping these? Well, I definitely should be able to. So for my host machine in my terminal, I'm going to ping that. And sure enough, that's completely fine. So I can see that machine in the Ubuntu machine. Sorry, the WSL should be able to see my host machine. 0.32. Yep. So they can talk to each other. So the problem is Ollama is not listening on all the interfaces. So what I need to do is come back in here. I need to do a systemctl stop Ollama. I'm going to then edit the service file. So I'm going to do a sudo vim etc systemd system ollama.service. That's the name of the file. Hit enter. So I get dropped down into here. Don't be too daunted about what's happening here. Just know that this is allowing Ollama to be ran as a service in the background. I'm going to update it, my WSL instance and this file. So anytime I start my Ubuntu WSL, Ollama will automatically start in the background. And I'm also going to make it listen on all the interfaces. So what I do is I come down here to the environment section. I'll come to the very end where this quote is, and I'm going to do I for insert, and then I'm going to add another variable to the environment, and it'll be called Ollama host, and we're going to say it equals 0.0.0.0. That basically just means listen on all interfaces. I'm going to press escape to get out of edit mode, hit a :WQ to save my work, and then I'm going to do a sudo systemctl daemon reload. That's going to reload all my service configurations. I'm also going to do a sudo systemctl enable Ollama so that when I do shut down or restart my WSL Ubuntu, when it starts back up, Ollama will automatically get ran in the background. And then do a systemctl start Ollama. And the last part is to make sure that it is up and running. So it does seem to be up and running. I can do that curl command. Let's go over here. And there we go. So now on my Windows host machine, I can access that WSL instance and access Ollama in that case. So that takes us to the next thing that we can do, which will be interacting with it either programmatically or through other tools. For this video, I'm just going to show you how I can interact with it programmatically in that case. So I'm going to open up Pycharm. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. There was one that I was already playing around with, but let's just do demo Ollama hello world. All right. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a framework that's going to make it very easy to interact with Ollama. That's called LangChain. Let's go ahead and here's LangChain. If you go to the documentation, this is going to explain a little bit more what happens in the background. Don't worry so much about this for this small exercise. Just know that it has Python libraries that makes it easy to interact with not just Ollama, but other LLM providers as well. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to make sure that I'm using my virtual environment, my Python virtual environment. There we go. I can confirm because I have this right here, the .venv, and this has its own instance of pip. So I'll do a pip install, and it's going to be called LangChain. Yeah, it's going to do its fun stuff, downloading these libraries. Again, it just makes it easy. Ollama does have its own API, but the fact that I can use LangChain to interact with other tooling, I'd rather just use this. It's just my preference. All right, so it is good. I'm going to go ahead and come to my main file, delete everything that's here. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's just wait for my Pycharm to update all the skeletons and stuff, which I think it did now. So now I'm going to go ahead and do from LangChain _ community.llms import Ollama. LLMs just being those underlying language models or providers that you can interact with. So then I'm going to do, and you're seeing some real-time code suggestions because I do have GitHub Copilot, so that's why you're seeing that there. The logic is correct of Ollama. I'm just going to name that variable. Actually, personally, I like to just call it LLM. That's just me. Ollama. And then you do need to specify the model that you're going to use. So the model that I'm going to use is going to be that Llama 2 in that case. You also have the ability to set the base URL. I already have this set in an environment variable, but if you didn't, you can come over here and put 11434, whatever port you have open. Otherwise, what I have is I have a variable on my host machine called Ollama host equals. And so when I'm running my Python program, it's automatically grabbing, system variables in that case. So I don't need to put that, but if you did, you can use the base URL in that case. All right. So then I'm going to do the simplest way to interact with Ollama from Python or programmatically. I'll just do response equals LLM.invoke, and then you put in your message. So I'll add that question. So what is the meaning of life? What is the oldest river in the world? There we go. And then you just print out your response in that case. So let's go ahead and save the file. And let's go ahead and do a right click and run and see what we get. And there we go. I'll bring this up here. So this is a response from our model in that case. It took just a little longer because it was more of a round trip since it's coming from my Windows machine into the WSL and then coming back out. So it did take a little bit longer, but it also didn't stream it out as well. So you can do that streaming. So what that looks like, instead of doing an invoke, and I'm just going to go ahead and comment this out. So I'll comment both of these sections out. What I'll do is I'll say stream equals LLM invoke. What is the oldest river in the world? Sorry, not invoke. We'll do stream equals LLM dot stream. What is the oldest river in the world? And then we'll say for chunk in stream, print that specific chunk. So that should give it more of that ChatGPT response of you're seeing it each word is being, or each word or token in this case is being generated. Also, I need to do, because I want it on the same line, and then flush equals true in that case. Let's go ahead and write this out. And notice there we go. Now we don't have to wait entirely for that response to come back. It's going to bring it back in chunks in that case. So now let's make this a little bit more dynamic in that case. We want to have a user be able to put a message in here instead of having it hard-coded. So what does that look like? Very simple. I'm just going to go ahead and take this out. And I'm just going to say input. Or let's say user input, because that's going to be a variable. And I go ahead and create a user input. And I'll just put that right there. So this is using the built-in Python function of input in order to set that to a variable. Then I'll pass that to a stream. I'm also going to go ahead and make this a loop so I can ask multiple questions. And then I'm going to check if the user enters the word exit, then go ahead and exit the loop. Otherwise, I'm going to get a loop that just goes on forever. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and run. And now I am prompted as a user. And let me stop this because there is one thing that I want to do. I want to say print assistant. This way it just looks a little neater on the lines in that case between the user and the assistant, and also print an empty line here at the end as well. All right, let's say, who is the Undertaker in regards to pro wrestling? I'm a big wrestling fan. So there we go. So we have the user and then we have the assistant. And then when that's done, then I can ask another question. Now, I cannot ask a follow-up question because I haven't added memory. We'll talk about that in another video, but I can ask just generic questions in that case. Let's ask how many of the iPhone are there? Now, I do not expect it to get this answer right, especially as, you know, time goes by and this video gets older. That's where we're talking about when you want to feed in more information into your right now it's stopped on iPhone 11, right? That because the model only has that much information. But there is a way in order to bring more consistent information to your models. I'll be working on that in a future video. But this is just a simple way of how you can interact with it programmatically. And then I can go and hit exit, and then I'm done. So there is more to this. There's more ways to structure your data. There's more ways to actually set your prompt as well. But I'm going to save that for a future video because I don't want this to go too long. But notice this was a very simple way of installing Ollama. Again, I use WSL, so just a few additional steps for me. But then I was able to use the LangChain library and Python in order to create a very simple chat loop. Again, it doesn't have history, but that is possible, and I'll do that in a future video. So hopefully this was helpful. Like and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Thanks.